Okay, so this video is going to be about suffering, and I noticed someone talking about it, and they said this, like, "Yo, I just can't." And this is a Christian, but this I feel like this applies to everyone, atheist, Christian, other religions too, because we all have situations like this and moments like this in our lives that we come to, right? He's like, "Yo, I just feel out of touch with God. I can't read my Bible. I hate myself because I understand how sinful I am. This, that, and the third, right?" I was like, okay, well, first thing you got to understand is that, like, you're not going through anything anyone else hasn't gone through, right? And that sounds snobby at first, but understand that it's selfish for any of us to think that something we're going through is unbearable and that we just are living the worst life ever, right? Which is basically what he described. He sent a bunch of messages, and one of the messages he described how this was terrible, how he can't understand why this is happening, right? So that's the first thing I said. I said the first thing, and it's not like I sat there and said it to him in a snobby way. I paraphrased. The first thing I did is, like, you need to understand that you're not the only person going through this. There are other people going through this. It's not just you, right? And like I said, I didn't say it in a snobby term, in a snobby tone, right? I said it in the sense of understand you're not the only one. There's other people like you. There's other people going through what you're going through. You're not the only one, right? One of the verses that kind of hits this is let me try to find it real quick here. It's going to be Ecclesiastes, or no, sorry, it's going to be 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and He will not let you be tempted beyond your strength. But with the temptation, will also provide you the way of escape. But you may be able to endure it. There's another one that says, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal which comes upon you to prove you, as though sometimes strain comes upon you to prove you, as though sometimes something strange were happening to you. But rejoice in so far as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when His glory is revealed." Right? So the whole point of those verses is kind of to go to this center point, and it's this: suffering is not a bad thing. Something that you might hear a lot of motivational speakers say, and people who are like, red pill, or like someone like Andrew Tate. Something I'm sure Andrew Tate has said that people kind of take as a philosophy now is that you should do stuff that makes you uncomfortable, right? You should do stuff that puts you in a situation where you suffer, right? For example, you suffer every time you work out. You suffer every time you don't eat food and you're hungry. You suffer every time you're at work and you don't want to be there and you have to stay there for the next 8 hours and continuously work, which no one continuously works for 8 hours. If you work for continuously for 8 hours every day, you must be some type of robot, because that's just not how the human brain works. You'd have to be so locked in. You'd have to love your job to work completely 8 hours a day without, like, ever drifting off or doing something else other than working, right? Anyway, so moving on. Like I said, do things that make you suffer is what we're going to paraphrase here. You do things that make you suffer, because when you suffer, you grow. So suffering is not a bad thing. Like I said before, suffering is relative. You don't need to sit there and tell somebody, "Oh, what you're going," like, one thing I do sometimes is I do say what you're going through is not that much, because some people like to victimize themselves. And when people victimize themselves, they get tunnel visioned and think that they're the only person in the world who's suffering. They're the only person in the world who is going through something, right? Like, I had one person I was talking to, right? And it's very iffy and off with him, right? One day he's sitting there spreading the gospel of God, not even spreading the gospel, I won't even say that, he doesn't do that. One day he's sitting there supporting God and quoting scripture, which he doesn't read the Bible that much anyway, so he's probably using ChatGPT to quote it. But anyway, one day he's quoting scripture, the next day he's not quoting scripture, right? Something important in his life passed away. I think it was some type of pet. It was a pet. It passed away, right? This person took that personally as a direct, like, message from God, that he took it personally from God, right? And he considered his suffering utmost of importance. And what do I mean by that? I mean, he considered that what he was going through was extremely traumatic, which it could have been traumatic, right? But one thing I like to explain to people is that, one, God does not cause suffering. That's not the nature of God, right? Or I should say this: God does not cause unjust suffering, right? So, for example, God is not going to sit there and just give someone cancer to give them cancer. That's not how that works. No. People like to blame God for a lot of the suffering that happens, but there's a specific verse that tells us that man puts themselves in situations and they suffer from those situations and they blame God for it. Now, is that every situation? No. Sometimes things happen that just happen, right? Sometimes, for example, is it anyone's direct fault that there's not a lot of water in Africa? I have no idea. I'd have to do research into it, but as far as I know, it's not anyone's direct fault. But at the same time, they're suffering from it. Did God sit there and take all the water from Africa and run away with it? No. That's silly. But understand that that suffering in Africa allows those people to grow too, because those people are probably stronger than most people. They're able to go long days without food and long days without water. Now, would I want to be able to do that? No, but they're able to do that now. They have grown from that, right? They are stronger people. I bet you if they had the resources we had after doing that, after living in those conditions for so long, they'd be stronger than us. They might even be smarter than us, honestly, because the lengths they go through to get water, it's a lot more dedication and motivation than most people have. So they have gained from that suffering, right? When you continue to put something under pressure, when you continue to put a muscle under pressure, for example, I just did leg day the other day. One of the things I like doing on leg day is front squats, right? Put your arms right here. You put the weight somewhere right. You put the barbell somewhere right here, or like somewhere right here, and then you squat. I usually just put a plate on there, and I do front squats for like 6 to 8. Burns really bad. It burns so bad. I think it's the most burn I've ever felt in my quads ever, right? It burns. I can feel it right now. That was literally just yesterday. I can feel it right now, right? It burns. And I know that if I continue to do that, one, I'm going to get 2 benefits. One, I will grow muscle from that, right? Because when you tear muscle and you eat, if you do eat, hopefully you eat, you will grow muscle back and at a faster rate because you're tearing that muscle. So the body has to regrow that muscle. And it's going to regrow that muscle so that it's stronger. So that next time you do that, it's not going to be as hard. So that's the first 2 benefits. First, you grow muscle. Second, the next time you do it, it's not going to be nearly as hard. It shouldn't be nearly as hard. If it is, well, maybe you need to go down in weight and then continuously go up in weight as it gets easier. Anyway, as I was saying, 2 benefits from that, right? What's the benefit of someone who has a lot of mental stress and eventually will be able to get over it, right? Someone who has a lot, for example, I have a lot of mental stress. I have a lot of tasks I have to do throughout the day that I don't even get completed. I'd say I have at least 16 different things I want to do in each day, and I get like 8 or 7 of them done. But because I have struggled with this for so long, I have come up with methods to complete a lot more of these tasks. A lot more of them, right? For example, going to the gym, I didn't get to do that every day. Now, today, I'm definitely going to be able to do that because I'm going to get off of work on time, right? Sleeping at the right time, eating at the right time. Those are a lot of things. Walking my dog every day, right? I didn't get to do that all the time because time management. But because I struggled with that and because I got to suffer the consequences of that, I've grown from that, right? So yet again, highlights of this video. Suffering is relative. You don't get to sit there and say someone's suffering isn't, isn't valid. That's not what you should do. Now, what you can do is if someone's in themselves and their feelings, if they're victimizing themselves, you can call out that fact because that's something important to remember. Granted, you are not suffering the same way someone else is suffering, but someone else might have a higher severity of suffering. For example, I suffer for like a lot of mental stress, but my suffering is not to the same severity as someone who suffers from not having water. Do we both suffer 100%? Would they want my suffering? Would I want their suffering? No. But at the end of the day, someone has a higher severity of suffering. So if I'm just to sit here and victimize myself by saying, I suffer more than anyone because I have mental stress, that's ridiculous. But understand, it's that middle point of understanding that you're not suffering worse than someone, but at the same time, you get what I'm saying. There's a severity of suffering and there is suffering, right? Everyone suffers, but everyone has a different severity of suffering. And some people can't handle someone else's severity of suffering, right? Some people couldn't handle like the mental stress I handle. I couldn't handle the physical stress that someone handles. Simple as that. The second highlight of the video to remember, suffering isn't a bad thing. It builds character. Like, if you look at the military now as opposed to back then, it's really kind of sad, actually. And this isn't the military's fault. This is more of a people getting soft kind of fault. Like, for example, back when my grandpa was in the military, they could physically put their hands on you. Now, is it great? Was that great? Probably not. But at the same time, it built character. It did. The soldiers then were different from the soldiers now. Like, how soft we are with our soldiers, like, I'm pretty sure drill sergeants can't even yell at you anymore. They have to speak in a respectful tone, which the whole point of them doing that is to break you and build you up again. There's a point to why they did all that. The whole point of it was that so they could break you and build you up again. I'm pretty sure in rare case, I don't even know if they can curse at you anymore. Which I'm not saying I like being cursed at, but understand, all that is done to break your character and build it again, so that you are a different person when you leave the military. Their job is to break you and then rebuild you. They don't want you coming out a slob. They want you going in a slob and coming out a man. Simply put, right? But end of the day, those are the 2 highlights I would say that you should take away from this. I guess the third highlight is this, for those of you who do believe, right? Understand that what you're going through isn't special. It's not. What I'm going through isn't special. For me, it might be painful, but for someone else, this is light work. And for what I'm going through, it's painful. And for someone else, it's unbelievably painful, right? But understand that when you go through trials and tribulations, that's a good thing because it says that there's struggle there. If there's no struggle there, then there won't be growth there. If you're doing push-ups, if you're doing 5 push-ups every day, and you're like, like, oh, 1, 2, 3, like if you're speeding through 5 push-ups every day, and like if you can do 5 push-ups in less than 5 seconds, and like you do that once every day, like you do 5 push-ups once every day, and you do it in less than 5 seconds, you're not gonna grow from that. That's too easy. Like, if I had to put it in gym terms, up the weight. If I'm benching the bar and I'm throwing that thing up in the air and I need to go up in weight, which most people don't bench the bar. At least most males I know don't bench the bar. But if you're just sitting there pushing that weight up and down like it's nothing, then you need to increase the weight. If you're not suffering, then you're not growing. If you're not going through pain, then you're not growing. If your mind isn't exhausted at the end of the day, then you're not going to grow from that. So if you want to sit there and be a soft soy boy, go ahead and do that. But I'm just letting you know that suffering is a good thing. No great man ever has gotten somewhere by not suffering. And when I say great man, I mean someone who's become successful on their own. And I shouldn't even say their own. Someone who's become successful, right? I only say on their own because I don't like to reference the people who obviously just are born into wealth. But even then, some of those people also do go through their own suffering and build their own path. But anyway, I'll stop ranting because we're kind of closing in on 12 minutes here. But yet again, hope this message was helpful for you guys. Praying for all you guys out there. Stay in the faith and stay with God.